It all starts in an ordinary room with a computer and an empty chair. Our protagonist only passed out after playing a game while having a beer, but when he woke up, he was no longer in his room, but rather in the game world. Soon a girl with white hair warns that stronger demons are coming. Our hero Kadam doesn't even flinch and is already preparing to finish them all off. He then rockets forward toward the horde of monsters. Upon arriving there, the first demon doesn't even stand a chance and immediately goes for it. However, it wasn't just one, and several others appeared for the fight. But our boy is not intimidated and launches a devastating attack. The blow is so powerful that it tears apart several enemies at once. The monsters' lifeless bodies fall to the ground one after another. In a few seconds, the battlefield is already full of defeated enemies, and at the center of it all is our protagonist who caused the destruction. He raises his head and observes the result of his absurd power. Our hero thinks that because he is in the demon realm, everything is more difficult. The path to confronting the archdemon seems quite complicated. Despite this, he remembers something else that is far more worrying. He knows he's going to get a scolding from that Melissa girl when he gets back. While he is thinking about this, a gigantic horde of monsters appears. In desperation, a red-haired girl shouts the name of our hero, Kadam, and then Melissa shows up, already scolding our hero Kadam. Soon a knight in golden armor appears to intervene in the discussion. He quickly engages in combat with the nearby stone monsters. This is the hero Gale, who arrives showing what he's made of with his sword. Gale then tells Melissa to leave the argument for later, because the fight is the priority. She gets frustrated with his attitude and thinks he's too uptight. Meanwhile, the white-haired girl prays, asking for protection for everyone. Her name is Cyril, and she is worried about Kadam overworking himself. The fighting continues with the monsters being crushed mercilessly. Then a priest named Gordon tells Cyril not to worry so much. He believes that our protagonist has his reasons for fighting the way he does. The group decides to focus on the fight and then deal with Kadam later. Our hero then formally introduces himself to the viewer. He is part of the hero's group that was formed to defeat the boss. Furthermore, he is a great warrior of Atala, the god of battle. But our boy has a secret that no one there suspects. Deep down, he's just a normal guy who was transported into the game. The story is quite cliché, where a hero gathers friends to save the world. Their ultimate goal is to defeat the fearsome archdemon. But for our protagonist, this adventure is not just a pastime, but for a normal person who has never hurt anyone, this life is hell. To endure all this, our hero needs to take drastic action, because this world is simply too cruel for an average person. He then activates his ability, transforming him into a blood berserker. With his mind driven mad, he thinks only of killing more and more demons. For he believes that if he defeats all the enemies that appear, he will finally be able to escape this cursed world that he hates, and so bid farewell to this life of endless suffering and brutality. Completely transformed, he loses control and turns into a monster. His only wish is to get out of this place as quickly as possible. He wants to speed up the process and end it all once and for all. Then our boy climbs onto a mountain of bodies, displaying his fury, and in the midst of his madness, he begins to devour the monsters he killed. Suddenly, a demon resembling a succubus appears on the battlefield. She looks at our protagonist's condition and calls him a demon. She attacks him, but he promises he will wipe out their entire race. With an insane look, he shouts that he will drink every last drop of blood. He lunges at her with everything he's got, but someone shouts his name from afar. A bright light shines and a voice calls for Lord Kadam to awaken. And gradually he seems to come to his senses, still confused by the situation. Lying on the ground, Melissa calls out for Kadam, even though she is badly injured. In a moment of rage, our hero attacked her without even realizing it. When he comes to, he is shocked to see that he has hurt his friend. Our protagonist can't believe he's reached this point of madness. The Berserker ability is slowly driving him insane. What was once just in-game text is now a real curse. This madness is getting into your mind and devouring you from the inside. The blood of demons, once disgusting, now tastes sweet. He wonders if he will be able to stay sane until he defeats the archdemon. In his mind, his instincts scream at him to kill and devour everything, but Melissa hugs him from behind, managing to calm his fury, even though she's injured. She says she's fine and that it's not his fault. Kadim apologizes, and she says that now it's their turn to protect him. The other teammates approach, concerned about the situation. Cyril and Gordon claim they will help our hero fight against madness. Gordon even says he'll hit Kadim if he loses control again. The hero Gale then asks if everyone has finished resting. If they've caught their breath, it's time to move on. He extends his hand to Kadim and says that they need to save the world together. Our protagonist accepts the help and reaffirms his bond with the group. And so they continued their journey with exhausted bodies and minds, until they finally reach the boss, and Gale shouts our hero's name. Kadim then lunges at the archdemon for the final blow. The red monster doesn't even have time to react to the surprise attack. Our protagonist uses all his strength in a massive spinning attack. Gale watches everything with a look of relief as the fight is almost over. The blow hits the archdemon squarely, leaving him unable to defend himself. And with that, the enemy's body begins to disintegrate in the air. Melissa watches from afar as the outcome of the long battle unfolds. She then wonders if it's all finally over. Gordon approaches her and places his hand on her shoulder to comfort her. He confirms with a smile that yes, the fight had come to an end. The girl is in shock because the reality of her victory hasn't sunk in yet. But suddenly she realizes that something strange is happening. A mysterious light begins to shine over the battlefield. Nobody in the group understands what's going on at that moment. Cyril then cries out desperately, asking where Lord Kadim is. Our hero dropped his weapon and is walking towards the light. Gale tries to stop him by shouting that he doesn't know what's inside. However, our protagonist doesn't listen and continues on his way. He then turns to take one last look at his friends. Our hero says it was a real honor to fight alongside them. Gale tries to stop him by reaching out his hand, but it's too late. A bright light blinds everyone as our protagonist disappears. Too weak to stand, Cyril begins to fall to the ground. She collapses, completely exhausted, after everything that happened. Alone on the battlefield, the light illuminates her sadness. The girl then calls out Kadim's name in a voice full of pain. Our hero walks through a dark place, leaving footprints of light. He continues walking through the darkness, not knowing what to expect. He realizes that nothing has changed and thinks about what to do when he returns. The first thing he wants is a beer and a good night's sleep. Our boy feels bad for not saying goodbye, but promises never to play again. He accepts that he will never see his friends again and bids farewell to his life as a warrior. Suddenly, a door of light appears, and he believes it to be the exit. But as he approaches, he notices something terrible and is shocked. He can't believe what he's seeing and hopes it's a dream. On the other side of the portal, a gleaming cross emerges from the darkness. The shock turns to despair, and he begins to laugh uncontrollably. Our protagonist then lets out a laugh of pure insanity. The game then restarts in New Game Plus mode, much to our hero's dismay, and now he is in a line of prisoners being led away by guards. His hands are handcuffed, and he's still trying to understand what happened. Everyone is walking along a dirt road without knowing where they are going. Next to him, an old man complains that he was unjustly arrested for a robbery. One of the guards quickly becomes irritated and orders everyone to be quiet. The prisoners fall silent immediately, afraid of what might happen. The guard then grumbles that they are nothing but a bunch of noisy trash. But another man tries his luck and says he was also caught by mistake. The soldier turns to him and asks him very rudely what he wants. The guy swears he was framed and that he never sold anything related to demons. The guard just stares at him in silence, paying little attention to the story. The prisoner then realizes that he has been the victim of a very serious setup. He looks at the young paladin on horseback and understands that he is the culprit. The guard also knows that if he does something wrong, the paladin will finish him off. Therefore, he accuses the prisoner of doubting the word of Elga's champion, and he sends the man back saying that if he is innocent, he will be released one day. The poor fellow then returns to the queue, completely hopeless of getting out. The guard is sorry but knows he won't survive much longer. But leaving the merchant aside, he seems to be thinking about something else. The guard then focuses on our protagonist, who is handcuffed right behind him. He wonders how they managed to capture such a strong barbarian. Meanwhile, our hero walks among the others, completely bewildered. Our protagonist wonders what the hell is going on now. His body looks the same, but all the power he had has simply vanished. At least the madness and guilt that consumed him also disappeared. Judging by the New Game Plus message, he must have returned to the beginning of everything. Even so, our boy still doesn't quite understand what's going on. He remarks to an old man that even games don't start like that. Suddenly, an old man nearby offers him a dried root. You tell him to chew during the trip so he doesn't get bored. Our protagonist then faces the old man, not understanding this kindness. The old man says he was helped by barbarians, and that's his way of thanking them. Our hero picks up the root, still somewhat suspicious of the situation. Kadim then asks how he was caught, but the old man says he doesn't know. The old man then just continues walking with a very sad face. Our hero thinks that the paladins of the empire are hostile towards pagans. The old man is surprised and asks if he doesn't know the Lucania Empire. Kadim remembers that it was a kingdom, but the old man says that was a long time ago. He wonders if he has fallen into a parallel world and asks where they are going. The old man warns that in Lucan, they will face the inquisition of the judges. Our hero thinks that at least they won't finish him off all at once. The old man despairs and sees no good in their situation. He says the inquisitors are crazy and will treat our hero like a toy. The old man describes the horrible things they will do to our protagonist. Suddenly, the paladin attacks the old man for talking too much. The poor fellow falls to the ground without the slightest chance of defending himself. The paladin then says that whoever insults an agent of Elga pays with their life. He gives a wry smile, showing that he doesn't care in the slightest. His horse then begins to walk in the direction of our hero. The paladin asks if it was the barbarian who started all the trouble. He orders our boy to bow down and beg for forgiveness so he won't die. If he apologizes, the paladin promises to let him live. Our protagonist simply gives the knight a mocking smile. The paladin becomes furious at the audacity and calls him a cheeky pagan. He considers this blasphemy and charges at him with his sword. Our hero doesn't even move as the blade approaches his face. He just gives a slight corner of the mouth smile, showing his confidence. The paladin is shocked and doesn't understand our boy's reaction. With his hands handcuffed, our hero draws his sword effortlessly. The paladin tries to draw his sword, but our hero's strength is absurd. Desperate, he yells at our protagonist to drop his blade. Our boy then says that since he asked nicely, he'll let go, and with a single movement, he throws the paladin and his horse far away. The knight becomes furious and vows to judge the pagan right there. And then, he can hardly believe what just happened to him. Our hero then leaps toward the paladin to end the fight. The impact on the ground is so strong that it raises a cloud of dust. When the smoke clears, the knight lies fallen and defeated on the ground. His horse couldn't handle the strain either and was dragged uphill. Our protagonist merely observes the scene without showing any reaction. The paladin rises and cannot believe that a pagan dared to attack him. He says our hero will pay for having wounded an agent of God. Our boy thinks that because he's a rookie, an attack like that wouldn't kill him. The knight's lance then begins to glow with a blue energy. He gets up and grabs his weapon, ready for a new confrontation. Our protagonist recognizes the spear and knows what is coming. The paladin begins to pray to his god Elga, the master of eternal light. A divine light descends from the heavens and strengthens him with a sacred power. He says that in Elga's name, he will judge our hero for his sins. With his spear gleaming, the paladin charges forward with everything he's got. He advances swiftly toward our hero for the final blow. Our protagonist senses the danger and prepares for what is to come. He knows that with his current body, He doesn't have the slightest chance of deviating. Then the spear of light strikes him squarely with overwhelming power. The impact is so strong that it throws him far away and breaks his handcuffs. Our hero falls onto a cart, smashing everything in his path. He places his hand on his chest and feels a blue energy emanating from the wound. The paladin is shocked to see that he is still alive after that. He then approaches and says, "The barbarian's resistance is ridiculous." Our boy thinks that even with his abilities reset, he still has and that ability is precisely that of transforming into a blood berserker. He then wonders how he can get out of that complicated situation. Suddenly, our protagonist smells a familiar scent coming from the cart. The paladin continues walking towards him, oblivious to everything. He says he recognizes the barbarian's strength, but that the fight ends there, and our hero is commanded to accept Elga's forgiveness through death. The knight is then shocked to smell the same strange odor. He covers his nose and wonders where that horrible stench is coming from. Our protagonist then gives a sinister little laugh to the paladin. The paladin doesn't understand anything and asks if our hero has finally gone mad. Our boy then says that the god Elga seems to have chosen him as her new agent. He then sticks his hand into the wreckage of the cart to retrieve something, and from there he takes the head of a goblin that was the source of the horrible smell. The paladin is disgusted by the scene and moves away from the disgusting head. On our hero's chest, the wound shines, forming a sacred symbol. With a confident smile, he faces the paladin, who is speechless. Our protagonist then picks up what's left of the ogre as a trophy, and to everyone's surprise, he squeezes the head of the goblin in front of him. Then the creature's disgusting blood begins to flow down its body. Our hero drinks it all without hesitation, leaving the paladin shocked by the scene. The soldiers and the knight are paralyzed, unable to believe what they are seeing. The paladin is disgusted and says that our hero is too filthy to even come near. He then orders one of his random guards to finish the job for him. With the monster's blood, a red aura begins to emanate from our hero. The poor soldier is terrified by the order, but has no choice but to obey. He then gathers his courage and charges forward, shouting towards our protagonist. The guard tries to strike with his spear, but our boy is faster. With one hand, he grabs the soldier's face with absurd force. Our protagonist lifts it off the ground without any difficulty. The desperate guard begins to plead for his life to be spared. He begs not to die there in such a terrible way. The paladin is shocked to see the strength the barbarian has demonstrated. Without a second thought, our hero delivers a fatal blow to the poor soldier. He then thinks that it was a weak demon and only gave it basic strength, but that strength is already enough to escape that cursed procession. With his eyes glowing red, he shouts that it's more than enough, and with a cry of fury, he unleashes all his newly acquired power. One of the guards begins to stutter with fear, unable to speak properly. Completely terrified, he shouts to everyone that our hero is a monster. Terrified, the soldiers drop their spears to the ground without a second thought, and they all start running desperately away from the chaos. The paladin then shouts for them not to retreat and to form a line of attack. He also says that anyone who flees will be severely punished under military law. The knight thinks that if he hits him a few more times, he will finally fall. But suddenly our hero throws the goblin's head in his direction. The impact is so strong that the paladin is thrown backward without a chance to recover. He falls to the ground, stunned by the blow he has just received. Looking ahead, he sees the demon's head and becomes confused. The knight then seems to realize something and breaks out in a cold sweat of nervousness. Suddenly, he realizes the danger and is completely shocked. Our protagonist runs towards him at an absurd speed. The paladin quickly prepares for the battle to come. He then begins to pray to his god Elga, the master of eternal light. With shining eyes, he asks strength to finish off the servant of the demons. Our hero leaps into the air for a devastating overhead attack. The paladin shouts the name of his god and prepares a powerful counterattack. And with all his might, he launches his light attack toward Kadam. With an insane grin, The paladin believes the fight is already won, but our hero appears behind him and asks if that was all. The knight is shocked and begins to sweat profusely, completely bewildered. Our boy holds the light spear in his hand effortlessly. Immediately afterwards, he prepares a punch with his hand glowing red. The blow lands squarely and violently throws the paladin away. The impact of the blow reverberates through the sky with absurd force. The scene pulls back, and we see the fallen knight after taking the beating. With a weak voice, the paladin stammers, begging our hero to stop. He admits he was wrong and begs for forgiveness with his face on the ground. Our protagonist merely observes him with his red aura of fury. Then he turns his back, and the paladin thanks him, thinking he has been spared. But inside he curses our boy and promises revenge later. He continues lying on the grass, trying to catch his breath from the fight. The paladin swears he will take revenge, but suddenly notices something strange. Beside him, a spear is stuck in the ground very close to his head. And then our protagonist's feet enter the scene. The knight looks up and sees the shadow of our hero above him. In his eyes, we can see the pure terror of someone who knows that it's over. Our boy picks up the spear and comments that he still prays to Elga. Our hero then says that he hopes he can stay with his god. Desperate, the knight begs our boy to wait a little longer, but our protagonist calls him Elga's little puppy and attacks mercilessly. And with that, the paladin crawls upwards with the spear against his chest. Our hero then looks to the side with a very serious expression. He realizes that the other guards are trying to escape, and the poor things run with all their might, screaming to escape. Our boy remembers an important lesson from his early life. Meanwhile, the soldiers continue running without even looking back. One of them even looks back to see if he's still being followed. He thinks he is safe, but a spear suddenly strikes him squarely, and it wasn't just him, as the others were also corrected one by one. The lesson was simpler: never leave any loose ends. But one last guard managed to hide in the middle of a bush. The poor thing trembles with fear and covers his mouth to avoid making any noise. However, our protagonist already knows he's there and gives a little smile. He then takes a spear and hurls it with absurd force. The weapon flies like a rocket toward the poor soldier hiding, and with that spear he strikes squarely what was hidden right there. After finishing off everyone, our hero calls for a brother. The old man who gave the root to our hero praises him for defeating the paladin. He then asks our boy to remove his handcuffs, but gets punched. The other prisoners are completely shocked by the scene. Our hero then attacks the old man head-on. Seeing that, the other poor souls began to run away in desperation, but our protagonist jumps on top of them and repeats his life lesson. The face of one of them shows the pure terror of someone who knows they are going to die. Desperate, one of the prisoners asks why our hero is doing this, but Kadam pays no heed and prepares to attack the man with the spear. With a cold and determined look, he finishes off the poor wretch without mercy. Our protagonist then remains silent, observing the result of his actions. The field is now littered with bodies because of his decision not to leave a trace. He thinks that if he left the prisoners alive, they would spread the news. And in the worst-case scenario, an elite paladin would be sent to hunt him down. Therefore, our boy concludes that he cannot take that kind of risk at all. Meanwhile, the last remaining prisoner cries and calls him a pagan. Completely terrified, the man cowers in the middle of the bushes. Not knowing what to do, our hero approaches him, and the poor fellow screams in pure terror. Kadim then warns that he is the last one left to be eliminated. He raises his spear, ready to finish off the last witness to the massacre. The prisoner still tries to argue and shouts that he is completely innocent. However, our protagonist grips the weapon tighter, ignoring their pleas. The man trembles on the ground because he knows his end is drawing ever closer. He pleads for his life once more, saying he did nothing wrong. Our boy then coldly asks why he should let him live. The man explains that he has a wife and children, and that he was captured by mistake. Seeing that nothing helps, he shouts if our hero doesn't need a guide. Intrigued by the proposal, our hero asks what he means by a guide. He claims to be a merchant who knows the region well and our hero decides to test him. Kadim then questions him about Lucania, which in his memory was just a kingdom. The merchant is completely confused by our protagonist's question. He thinks that because he is a barbarian, perhaps he comes from a very distant place. Our hero then loses patience and demands an answer immediately. The man says that the empire was founded 248 years ago. Kadim then asks what year it would be in the lunar calendar he knows. The merchant says that this ancient calendar is already over 1,130 years old. Our protagonist is shocked because the calendar he was using has become history. He then asks about the continent, Elda's church, and the demon kingdom. The man explains that Lucania unified everything, but is now divided into three. The church grew stronger, and no one who went to the demonic realm returned alive. Our boy is shocked by the news that no one has returned from there. He then reveals the names of Gale and Melissa, his former companions, and also Gordon and Cyril, his other friends from the group of heroes. Our protagonist then asks if he has ever heard of any of them. The merchant says he is hearing these names for the first time in his life, but suddenly he stops and seems to recognize Melissa's name. Our hero notices the change and stares intently at the man. The merchant tries to remember the name Melissa, but seems confused about the pronunciation. Our hero finds it strange that heroes have been forgotten like this. He begins to doubt whether this world is really a continuation of his own. Kadim then asks why the demons invaded the continent. The man says there are several theories, but nobody knows the truth. One of them speaks of the coming of a great evil that will destroy everything, but he believes that the truth lies with the king who lives above the clouds. Our protagonist simply stares at the man processing the new information. He then drops his spear to the ground, making an important decision. The merchant is relieved and watches our hero turn to leave. Kadim then begins to walk alone through that vast green field. He concludes that he is 300 years in the future from his first journey. Our boy remembers how he was expelled from his original world, and now all the knowledge he had is hundreds of years out of date. His former companions whom he left behind no longer exist. With a sad look, he realizes that everyone has turned to dust in this new era, and he wonders if it's worth living by repeating the same massacres. He no longer wants to have to drink demon blood to suppress his madness, and there's no guarantee he'll come home if he finishes the game again. With his eyes closed, he seems to be making a decision about his future. Our hero then takes the spear and breaks it in half without any difficulty. The merchant is completely confused, not understanding his attitude. He then points the sharp end of the spear at his own neck. With the weapon in position, our boy prepares to end everything there. Desperate, the merchant asks what he is trying to do now. Our hero thinks that if he continues the journey, he will have many regrets, and so he presses the spear against himself with all his might. He just hopes that afterwards there won't be a game over screen with no way out. Then he begins to pierce himself with the sharp point of the broken spear. The gun slowly enters his neck as he closes his eyes. Suddenly he remembers Melissa talking about creating a tower of wizards. With wide eyes, he stops the attack at the last second. Kadim then asks if the man actually heard Melissa's name. The merchant says that the name of the first mistress of the tower was similar to this. Our hero asks where the tower is located, and the man answers immediately. He explains that the trip there would take at least 2 months. Our protagonist remains silent, pondering what he has just discovered. He thinks that because of this, he can no longer take his own life now. Kadim then tells the man to guide him, but he complains about his family. Our boy stares at him seriously because he can't waste any time on the trip. As payment, our hero offers the most precious thing he can give. He then says that the payment will be the merchant's life, which terrifies him. Kadim tells him to find the key, free himself, and gather his things so they can leave. While the man prepares, our hero searches for a weapon in the wreckage. He finds a sword and says that with his skill it will look quite decent. Our boy thinks the paladin's spear was better, but he can't use it. He then laments not having brought the axe from his previous life. Now free and with his backpack, the merchant wonders what our hero is doing. He then sees Kadam filling a canteen with the blood of a dead monster. Our protagonist then ties the canteen to his waist, along with the sword. Now ready for the journey, he announces that they are about to leave, and so the two begin their long walk towards the wizard's tower. Meanwhile, at the site of the massacre, the paladin's body is left behind. Ravens with red eyes then begin to gather for the feast. Days later, a group of horsemen arrives and finds Linton's body. A soldier says that everyone has been killed and asks the leader what to do. The group's commander is a paladin named Lady Helia who faces the scene. She observes the massacre site with a very serious expression on her face. Her eyes then close for a moment as she assesses the situation, and with her hands on her hips, she stares at the paladin's body lying on the ground. Lady Helia's face fills with fury when she sees what happened to her companion. Dogs. Lady Helia's face fills with fury when she sees what has happened to her companion. Night then falls and the moon shines brightly in the dark sky. Far from there, our hero and the merchant are camping near a forest. The embers of the campfire still burn slowly in the middle of the camp. Our protagonist appears to be sleeping peacefully next to the fire. The merchant then sees a golden opportunity to escape from that monster. He starts running desperately through the forest without looking back. Exhausted, he continues running with all his might to escape. The man named Duncan celebrates because he finally managed to escape from there. He thinks he needs to run as far as possible to save himself. Duncan knew it was dangerous to travel alone, but the problem is something else. Your traveling companion is a barbarian who devours demons. In recent days, he had tried to be kind by offering food to Kadam. Then he offered our hero a blanket to warm him from the cold, and when he tried to start a conversation, our boy simply ignored him. The barbarian hardly speaks and does not allow questions beyond what is necessary. Duncan then concludes that he is not a person but a beast. He thinks that if that were the only problem, he could endure it. But suddenly our hero appears right in front of you out of nowhere, and with a wry smile he says that the merchant is very slow. Completely shocked, Duncan is left speechless by our hero's speed, because he barely points in the right direction, and our boy disappears right in front of him. So our protagonist stands there with his arms crossed, just waiting for him to arrive. His gaze is so intense it seems like a threat to the poor guy not to linger. Duncan wonders if his legs are made of steel, because he's on the verge of collapsing. The merchant feels he'll be crawling upwards if he continues at this pace. That's why he decides he needs to escape that monster no matter what. The perfect opportunity presents itself, and he runs through the dark forest without hesitation. He believes that because it's dark, our hero won't know where he went. But suddenly the poor fellow stops running and turns pale with despair. His backpack, filled with all his treasures, was left behind at the campsite. He thinks that going back might awaken the beast, but he doesn't want to lose his things. However, he decides that his life is more important and continues his escape. Tired, he stops and realizes he is completely lost in the forest. But at least he feels relieved, thinking that he is finally free. Suddenly, a voice asks him why he is in such a hurry. Duncan is paralyzed with fear and can't believe what's happening. Right in front of him, our hero asks why he's running away like that. And with a cold look, he reminds the merchant of the payment that was promised. Poor Duncan is trembling so much he can't even say a word. Desperate, Duncan throws himself to the ground and begs for forgiveness from our hero. He bows and apologizes, saying he will never do that again. But our boy wants to know the reason for the escape, so he doesn't try again. And with a serious look, he demands that the merchant explain why he fled. Duncan stammers and says that Kadam's rhythm is too fast for him. The merchant explains that if he continued at that pace, he would end up dying. Hearing this, he's sure that now he'll finally get to slide up. Our protagonist simply remains silent, processing the information, and to Duncan's surprise, he simply tells them to return to camp. Our hero then announces that he will be driving a little slower from now on. With his back to the merchant, he then begins to walk back the same way. Poor Duncan is completely confused by our hero's reaction. Back at camp, the campfire now burns much more intensely. While our protagonist keeps watch, the merchant sleeps peacefully. But the poor thing seems to be having nightmares and is begging not to die. Our hero simply observes the scene without showing any reaction. He remembers that his fast pace was a habit from his early life, where every moment was a race against time in a hostile place. Because of his madness, he and his friends lived in constant danger, but now he realizes things are different and he can relax. Furthermore, our hero now has a good reason to slow down. The merchant proves to be a very useful guide and suggests a safe detour. He then anxiously awaits our protagonist's response regarding the plan. Kadam agrees with the route, and Duncan is relieved by his decision. Our boy thinks that without a guide he would get lost with his 300-year-old map. The merchant warns that the only safe place for him is the Alliance of Free Cities. Kadam wonders if the paladins are the reason he hasn't seen any demons. He then realizes that the blood in his canteen is going to spoil, and he needs more. Night falls again and the pair continue their journey through the dark forest. Suddenly, Duncan stops and warns our hero about something ahead. In the distance, they spot a small wooden village in the middle of nowhere. The merchant suggests that they stop there to rest and get food. Our protagonist then realizes that something very strange is happening. He comments that the village is completely dark and without any light, and to make matters worse, the main gate is open, and there are no guards around. Duncan wonders if it's an abandoned village, but Kadam decides to investigate. The merchant becomes frightened and says that a monster may have attacked the place. Suddenly, a figure rushes past one of the wooden houses. Duncan is startled by the movement, and our hero is immediately on alert. Without a second thought, our protagonist draws his sword, ready for battle. But our hero gives a small, knowing smile and finds this news welcome. Our hero then enters the spooky village, with the merchant trailing right behind him. Duncan asks what happened there, since the place doesn't look abandoned. Suddenly, our protagonist stops dead in his tracks. He stands completely still, realizing something is very, very wrong. With a keen eye, he focuses on a specific spot in the dark village. The merchant, terrified, asks why our hero stopped out of nowhere. He then notices that only one door in the entire village is open, but our hero is faster and lands a fatal blow on the monster. The creature's head goes flying before it could even react. Duncan is startled by the scene and nearly falls over from the shock. However, another monstrous hand appears in the doorway, signaling more danger, and out comes several other goblins, ready for the fight that's about to break out. The merchant stammers in fear, but Kadam says they are being controlled, and because of that, he cracks a slight smirk, having found what he was looking for. One of the goblins immediately charges forward with a club to attack our hero. Our guy then readies his sword, which glows with a blue light. The creatures are in shock at our protagonist's speed and power. With a determined look, our hero firmly grips his sword. One of the goblins screams and charges toward him to start the attack, but our protagonist is quicker, slicing it in half with a single strike. The blue light trail from the sword shows off our guy's incredible speed. The hit is so precise that the monster doesn't even realize it's already been sent packing. Another goblin tries to attack from behind, but our hero blocks it without breaking a sweat, and with a swift move, he spins his sword and finishes off the second enemy. The monster falls to the ground, lifeless, with the blade embedded in its chest. The goblin can't believe it was defeated so easily by a human. With a cry of pain, it's finished off and drops dead on the ground with the others. Our hero then shoves his sword into the last goblin left standing. The merchant is terrified and asks if all the monsters have been defeated. He then asks if the fight is finally over, but Kadam isn't so sure. Suddenly, Duncan is startled by a noise coming from the same house as before. A goblin's hand appears at the door, showing that the fight is far from over, and out comes a much larger goblin, holding a little girl as a hostage. The merchant is shocked to see that the victim was just a child. With a furious look, the monster prepares for the final showdown. But our hero's sword flies through the air and hits the creature square in the head. And with that, our protagonist saves the girl and ends the threat. The sword is stuck deep in the goblin's head, which never even had a chance to fight. The huge monster collapses to the ground, taking the little girl it was holding down with it. Duncan gets worried and asks if the child is okay after that nasty fall. But our hero says that's not going to happen and immediately springs into action. He then approaches the little girl and starts to untee her ropes. With a serious look, our guy calls out to her to talk about what just went down. The poor thing is trembling with fear, and he tells her he's not going to hurt her. Duncan then tries to calm the girl down with a stuffed bunny and a piece of candy. He offers her some dried licorice and says it tastes super sweet. The girl accepts it, and Kadam compliments the merchant on his way with kids. The girl then starts to eat the candy, still a bit shaken by everything. Duncan mentions he has a son around the same age, and our hero falls silent. Suddenly, the little girl calls out for her mother, leaving the duo confused. The merchant promises they will help her find her family, but the girl says her parents abandoned her there to perish alone. Our hero is taken aback, not expecting such a shocking revelation. Duncan then asks who tied her up in such a terrible way. Our protagonist then understands the whole truth behind the situation. Suddenly, a woman screams the little girl's name, which is Lenny. Her mother appears and tells everyone to be quiet because of the goblins. The mother then runs and hugs her daughter Lenny, relieved that she's okay. Crying with emotion, the woman thanks our hero for saving the little girl. Soon after, the other villagers show up and are shocked by the scene. One of them then approaches and asks if our hero was the one who did all this. Our protagonist pulls his sword from the monster's head and says it wasn't him. He then raises the weapon and says it was his sword that did all the work. Kadim then asks why they offered their own daughter as a sacrifice. The villagers fall silent, not having the courage to face our protagonist. One of them explains that the village was built on an ancient goblin forest. The group then arrives at the entrance of the demon's dark cave. Our hero stands in silence, observing the place before entering. Scared, the villagers say they're going back to protect the village. Duncan is outraged and asks if they only came to show them the way. But Kadam says that cowards just get in the way and tells only the merchant to come with him. Poor Duncan is shocked, as that was not what he was expecting, and so the two of them enter the dark cave, with our hero leading the way. Duncan then asks why he didn't chew out the cowardly villagers. Our protagonist then asks him if he's ever seen a live demon. The merchant stammers and says no. He's only seen some bodies on the black market. Kadim explains that facing a demon head on changes a person forever, a place where fear and the will to live are the only things that remain. But Duncan still thinks it's wrong, since even animals protect their young. Our hero says that to survive, sometimes you have to do awful things. The merchant retorts that for the children, it's as if the world has abandoned them. He then wonders what the point of living is without any decency. Suddenly, Kadam stops walking, and Duncan is startled by the movement. Our hero thinks that the merchant has an ethic that he himself lost a long time ago. Duncan gets worried and asks if the other children are still alive. Our protagonist then closes his eyes and concentrates for a moment. Our hero then explains that if the demon is evil, it will keep the children alive. Duncan is confused, but our protagonist already grabs the axe from his hand. The merchant despairs and shouts our hero's name, not understanding, and with a swift motion, he hurls the weapon into the darkness of the cave. Poor Duncan gets scared and shuts his eyes, afraid of what's about to go down. The axe flies like a rocket towards something in the dark, and suddenly, the weapon hits a target that was hidden there, dead on. Our hero then extends his hand and asks what that thing he saw was. A goblin appears, stumbling, with the axe embedded in its head. The creature drops dead to the ground, revealing a horde of other monsters. Blood trickles down the goblin's face as others appear from behind. With a war cry, the other goblins charge forward to attack the pair. Duncan is startled by the number of monsters, and Kadam tells him to light the way. With no time to waste, our protagonist charges toward the enemies. The first goblin tries to attack, but our hero stops it with just one hand. He then shoves his sword into the monster's neck without any mercy, and with absurd strength, he holds onto the arm of the goblin that tried to attack. So our hero uses the monster's body as a weapon against the others. He notices the place is full of stalagmites and stalactites, and because of that, he won't be able to use his sword freely. The goblins prepare to attack our hero with their weapons. Fearlessly, our protagonist braces himself for the battle to come. He then charges toward the horde of monsters, sword in hand. With no time to lose, he throws his sword like a sharp boomerang. The weapon spins and strikes the head of one of the goblins in the horde, and with a spinning attack, he cuts down the enemies one by one. Our hero then says he's going to need to use the axe he was given. He then grabs the weapon and goes after the monsters with everything he's got. With the axe in hand, he demolishes the goblins with powerful blows. With each swing, our protagonist takes down one of the enemies in the cave. The monster's blood flies everywhere, staining the area. One of the goblin heads falls to the ground after being chopped clean off. Duncan is shocked to see that our hero defeated them all by himself. He stands amidst the bodies of the monsters he just defeated. Suddenly, the remaining goblins start to flee in fear. Our hero says they're going to run to the demon's lair. The merchant advises that the path narrows and then opens up again. And with torch in hand, the duo continues their journey through the cave. They then reach a much wider and more spacious part of the place. Our protagonist leans against the wall and wonders if this is the goblin's base. Suddenly, our hero smells something strange in the cave air. He then warns Duncan to be careful because the demon is nearby. He also tells him not to run, or the goblins will finish him off. With a focused gaze, our protagonist prepares for what's coming. With a quick movement, he gets ready for the fight that's about to start. Without a second thought, our hero charges toward the darkness, and with his weapons in hand, he prepares for the boss battle. In the distance, the merchant desperately screams our protagonist's name. The demon then faces him and says it has never seen a human like him before. With a wicked smile, it lets out a sinister laugh at our hero. Our guy then realizes the story isn't quite how he heard it, because this so-called demon actually has horns growing on its forehead. Although small, they indicate that the monster is evolving. Our protagonist then braces for what will be a very tough battle. He knows that an evolving demon is a mid-rank enemy. The monster enjoys the look of despair on our hero's face. It then lunges forward with incredible speed toward our protagonist. Our guy prepares himself for the impact of the incoming blow. The demon and our hero then clash with absurd force. The monster says it likes humans because they are weak and obedient. Our hero thinks he blocked the demon's attack on pure instinct. The monster's strength and speed are much greater than he expected. The demon says he killed many goblins and that now it hates humans. Our protagonist knows that a mid-rank demon is a major threat. The monster then says it will give our hero a chance to save himself. It tells our guy not to use the arm that's holding the sword, and it orders him to cut off his own arm and eat every piece of it. Our hero thinks that in his current state, it will be difficult to win this fight. The demon gets irritated and asks why he isn't obeying its orders. Our guy then slams his sword into the ground, getting tired of this conversation. He then grabs his flask of blood and says he doesn't take orders from blood bags. With his sword, he pierces the flask, and demon blood begins to leak out. The monster is shocked, not expecting to smell that familiar scent, and without hesitation, our hero drinks all the remaining demon blood. He then throws the empty flask on the ground, preparing for what's next. A red aura begins to emanate from our protagonist's body, and with a roar of fury, he activates his blood berserker mode. The demon watches the transformation with a curious gaze. Our hero's eyes turn red, and his strength increases absurdly. He knows the effect won't last long and needs to end this fight quickly. The demon is shocked that it felt fear from a mere human. With hatred in its eyes, it promises to finish off our protagonist, and with a furious roar, It lunges forward with its sharp claws. Our hero thinks the horns are clouding the creature's judgment. The demon attacks with its claws, but our guy manages to dodge. Now, with his heightened instincts, he can see the monster's movements. The two then trade blows in a battle of pure strength and speed. The demon is surprised, not expecting so much resistance from the human. Our protagonist realizes the axe won't hold out for much longer, but he doesn't care, because if he runs out of weapons, he'll fight with his fists. The demon snarls in rage and prepares for another powerful attack. With a furious look, it calls our hero an unforgivable human. Our guy dodges and gets ready for the counter attack he's about to deliver. He then prepares for a decisive blow with his sword in hand, and with a spinning attack, he charges toward the red monster. The demon tries to defend itself, but the sword hits it square in the face. The impact is so strong that it throws the demon back and leaves it stunned. The monster is shocked by our protagonist's absurd strength. Our hero then readies himself for the final blow with his axe. The battle between the two reaches its climax with a clash of powers. With a devastating blow, our hero attacks the demon with everything he's got. The monster is shocked by our protagonist's destructive power. With a cry of pain, it tries to attack, but our guy is faster. He then grabs the demon's claw before it can hit him full on, but the monster manages to land a grazing blow on his chest. The demon is thrown backward by the force of the attack's impact. Our hero then prepares for a strike, his weapon glowing brightly. The monster tries to defend itself, but can't stop the attack. With a spinning motion, our protagonist unleashes his full power. With a determined look, he prepares for the final blow of the fight. The demon senses the danger and tries to back away to protect itself. With a leap backward, it tries to escape the devastating attack. The blow is so strong that it shatters the cave's rocks with ease. The demon falls to the ground, completely defeated and with no strength left to fight. It then asks what our hero is, because he doesn't seem human. Our protagonist just stares at it with his red aura of fury. With his eyes glowing, he doesn't say a word and just watches. The demon then concludes that he is a monster with a human appearance. Terrified, it tries to get up to flee that place as fast as possible. But our hero catches up to it and throws it against the cave wall. The demon realizes it's losing in terms of strength and that a head-on attack is useless. Scared, it hides behind a pillar and screams for the goblins to attack. The monsters then approach the merchant, who is cornered against the wall. With the torch in hand, he threatens the goblins to keep them from getting closer. The torch's flame illuminates the cave and keeps the creatures at bay, who retreat in fear. The demon then thinks that if the torch goes out, it can attack with full force. Our hero then slams his sword into the ground and prepares for his next move. He notices the monster is jumping between the stalactites on the ceiling. With his hands bleeding, he picks up the axe that had fallen on the ground, and with the weapon in hand, he readies himself for the attack he's about to launch. Our protagonist then says things are not going to go the way the demon wants. Our hero then realizes that if he throws the weapon, the demon will just dodge it, because the creature is too fast and he won't be able to hit it mid-air. With a determined look, he comes up with an idea to solve this problem. He then grabs the axe and prepares for a different kind of attack. Our guy says he's going to destroy the spot where the demon is standing, and with a powerful throw, he launches his axe at the cave ceiling. The monster is surprised, as it wasn't expecting an attack like that. The weapon spins through the air with absurd force, heading for the rocks. The impact is so strong that it shatters the stalactites on the cave ceiling. In the distance, the merchant and the goblins watch the scene, not understanding a thing, with nothing to hold on to. The demon begins to fall amidst the rubble. The explosion kicks up a cloud of dust that fills the entire area. Our hero's sword, stuck in the ground, waits for the next move. The demon complains that the dust got in its eyes, blinding it for a moment. Seeing the perfect opportunity, our guy plants his feet firmly and charges. He takes advantage of the monster's distraction to attack with everything he has, and with a precise strike, He shoves the sword right into the demon's eye. The creature screams in pain from the surprise attack it just received. Our hero then says with a smirk that its face looks pretty cool now. Even wounded, the demon screams that it will still finish off our protagonist. Our hero is surprised that the demon is still alive with its head pierced. He gets annoyed and calls the creature a nuisance, preparing for the final blow. The monster screams in pain and begs our protagonist to stop, but our guy couldn't care less and pulls the sword out with even more force. And with a devastating strike, he splits the demon's head in half. The creature doesn't even have a chance to react and is sent to the great beyond for good. With the monster's body falling to the ground, the great battle finally ends. Our hero then realizes the effect of the demon blood is wearing off. He breathes a sigh of relief, as he almost had to fight without his full power. Suddenly, our protagonist hears a noise and looks to the side surprised. The remaining goblins now seem confused and much calmer than before. Kadim understands that the demon's energy that controlled them has vanished. Even so, he holds his sword, preparing for whatever comes next. Without a second thought, he attacks one of the goblins that was just standing there. Our hero explains that he's going to finish them all off since they've already become semi-beasts. One of the goblins gets scared seeing our protagonist approaching it, but Kadim gives it no time to react and lunges at the creature. The little monster doesn't even see what hit it and is cut down without mercy. Our guy continues the massacre and notices one of them trying to sneak away, and shortly after, he finds the last goblin, holding a torch in its hand. Our hero then prepares to finish off the last remaining goblin, but suddenly, the merchant desperately screams our protagonist's name. He then grabs our hero's sword to stop the final attack. Our guy is surprised and doesn't understand his companion's action. The merchant trembles in fear, but manages to hold the blade with his bare hands. He then faces our protagonist with a look of pure concern. Duncan manages to stop the attack, and our hero backs off for a moment. Our protagonist just watches him in silence, trying to figure out what just happened. The merchant asks if he's okay, because his appearance is strange. Our hero then says everything is fine, and that the children must be inside. The man agrees and tells our guy to let him take care of the goblins. And so, the duo ventures deeper into the cave, with our hero carrying the demon. Back in the village, the residents celebrate the return of the missing children. Families are reunited in a moment of pure joy and relief. Our hero is welcomed as a great savior by everyone in the village. A villager offers him food, but Duncan asks about the reward. Parents and children cry with happiness to be together again. Our protagonist says the food should be given to the children first. Duncan is shocked and thanks our hero for his great kindness. One of the rescued children then looks at our hero with a frightened expression. The merchant Duncan then becomes thoughtful about our hero's actions. He then remembers what he saw in the cave and is shocked by the scene. The rescued children were in a trance, repeating strange words. Our hero then explains that they suffered constant brainwashing. One of them repeated endlessly about the ruin and death of humanity. Furthermore, she called herself the most useless child in the entire world. The brainwashing was so strong that not even a priest could withstand it. Kadim says the fact that their parents abandoned them was seared into their minds. Duncan is horrified and asks why a demon would do something like that. Our protagonist says that's their nature, as they feed on despair. The merchant is left speechless upon understanding the cruelty of the situation. He finally understands why a less cruel demon would have just ended the children's lives. But he still asks if the parents could heal them with love and affection. Our guy says it's not entirely impossible for that to happen. However, he doubts that parents who abandoned them once could save them now. Duncan then becomes heartbroken by the sad reality of those children. Back in the present, our hero is already leaving the village with the demon on his back. Duncan then shouts, asking why he's already leaving like that. He suggests that our hero rest, but Kadim says witnesses have already appeared. because taking out a paladin is something the Empire won't just let slide. The merchant remembers that a barbarian took out one of Elga's paladins. Because of that, our hero says if they're not lucky, they're already being followed. Meanwhile, at the massacre site, crows fly over a female paladin and her soldiers. With a serious expression, the group's commander stares at the crime scene. Before leaving, our hero uses a dagger to drain the demon's blood. He then makes a cut on the creature's neck to get what he needs. In front of everyone, he fills his flask with the dead monster's blood. He thinks that half a flask is more than enough for a future emergency. After collecting the blood, he throws the rest of the demon's body on the ground. A villager then asks what he's going to do with the creature's body. Our protagonist says he doesn't need it and tells them to burn it all. The man is confused, as he thought he hunted demons for money. He even thinks that if they sold the body, they could make a good profit from it. But our hero warns that the smell of blood will attract other monsters. And with a serious look, he asks if the village wants to be attacked again. The villager gets scared and stammers, saying he doesn't want any more trouble. Frightened, the other villagers already prepare to burn the body. Suddenly, an old woman approaches our protagonist from behind. As a thank you, she offers him a pair of boots and a belt as a gift. Our hero accepts and says the new items will be very useful on his journey. Without wasting any time, he equips the boots and belt he received. Ready to leave, he and Duncan prepare to continue their travels, but suddenly, our guy feels a sharp pain coming from his chest. He then realizes that the wound from the fight with the paladin still hasn't healed. Our hero thinks his body regenerates well, since the wounds from the demon have already healed. But the mark from the paladin's spear from 10 days ago still hasn't closed properly. So the weapon was blessed, which is why the wound is so hard to heal. Back at the crime scene, the paladin named Lady Helia observes the area. A soldier reports that he found no clues, and she immediately calls him pathetic. She says all the prisoners were dealt with, so the goal wasn't a rescue, and also, nothing was stolen, but the demon's body was carved up for some reason. The soldier then asks if she has any suspects in mind for the crime. Helia gets annoyed, calls him an idiot, and tells him to look for evidence. She adds that this is why he's still just a common paladin. The soldier thinks she's stuck up but can't argue because of her position. Helia Munal is an arch-paladin who took down 20 demons all by herself, and on top of that, she's the youngest to achieve this rank in the entire empire. He knows her personality is garbage, but her skills are incredible. With nothing else to do, he just takes the scolding and waits for new orders. Helia then tells him to get the holy relic the archbishop gave them. The soldier is startled and asks if she means the twin mirrors of Damien. The relic shows the past, but the part that shows the future is already broken. She yells that their job is to investigate, not to break the remaining relic. The soldier says the mirror would only break if it reflected a great demon. The soldier then hands the holy mirror to Arch-Paladin Helia. She kneels on the ground and prepares to use the relic's power. A strong light begins to shine from the mirror, illuminating the entire area, and with a beam of energy, the mirror projects images from the past. The first scene that appears is of our hero drinking the demon's blood. Then they see the paladin begging for his life before being taken out. And finally, the image of our protagonist attacking his enemies with fury. Helia and her soldier are shocked by the scenes they just witnessed. Our hero then appears with red eyes, brimming with power. Suddenly, the relic begins to crack and shatters into several pieces. The pair is in shock as the mirror broke right in front of them. The soldier says this means the reflected image was that of a great demon. He suggests they go back and warn everyone about the new threat that has emerged, but Helia says that now that they've seen the culprit, they will continue the search. The soldier is confused, but she already stands up, ready for the hunt. With her sword in hand, she prepares to find our protagonist. A blue aura emanates from her body, showing she is not playing around, and with a determined look, she vows to put an end to our hero. Far away, The merchant Duncan washes his face in a river at the edge of the forest. He then thinks that because of his son, he can't stop worrying. Duncan then shakes his head, trying to push away the bad thoughts. He thinks that for the children to be okay, he needs to keep moving forward. Back at the camp, the merchant finds our hero lying by the fire. He approaches and says dinner will be ready soon, but notices something odd. Poor Duncan is confused, not understanding what's happening there. Our protagonist is sweating and shaking badly, seemingly having a nightmare. The merchant finds it strange, as someone who takes down demons shouldn't get sick. Suddenly, he sees the wound on our hero's chest and is shocked. Kadim then thinks he should have realized the danger of the spear sooner. The weapon had a fatal blessing for demons, but wouldn't affect humans. Except our hero is a berserker who uses demon blood to fight. Duncan says he should have rested, but the wound won't heal that easily. Our guy then asks what phase the moon was in the previous night. Upon hearing the answer, he says it's a good thing they didn't miss the moment. Suddenly, a noise in the forest startles the merchant, who becomes alert. He wonders what that sound is and hopes it's nothing serious. Soon after, several glowing eyes appear in the darkness of the night, and a giant wolf's paw stomps hard on the ground, frightening the duo. From the shadows emerges a giant wolf that Duncan recognizes as a blade wolf. Even wounded, our hero faces the new threat with a very serious look. Even wounded, our hero doesn't hesitate and grabs his axe and sword. He then tells Duncan to stay back, and the merchant worries about his condition. Our guy laments that this cursed world has no intention of letting him rest. Despite this, he faces the wolf pack, ready for whatever comes. And with a bit of sass, he says the beasts could have come later to visit a sick man. The wolf pack stares at the duo with a hungry and wild gaze. Despite being in bad shape, our hero takes a deep breath and prepares for a fight. Surrounded by the monsters, our protagonist positions himself to protect the merchant. One of the wolves then charges forward with full force to start the attack, but our guy doesn't waste time and retaliates with his axe in hand. The blow lands squarely, and the beast doesn't even have a chance to react. The creature is thrown far by the force of the impact, putting the others on alert. He then thinks that his vision is blurry and he can't aim properly. Taking advantage of the opening, two other wolves charge toward him. Our hero then grabs his sword, preparing for the next round. One of the wolves bites his arm, but he ignores it and mercilessly attacks the other. Even at a disadvantage, our guy continues to fight with everything he has. With no other option, he lands a punch right in the middle of the wolf's face. He then grabs the beast by its mouth and immobilizes it with his absurd strength. With a grunt of effort, our hero prepares to use the beast as a weapon. With a determined look, he focuses on ending the fight quickly, and with a swift motion, he hurls the wolf against the rest of the pack. The beast he threw hits one of its companions squarely on the way. After the attack, he looks back with a very tired expression, and with that, another one of the wolves is taken out in the confusion. Even exhausted, our hero remains standing, surrounded by the remaining wolves. But the pack is not intimidated and prepares to attack again. He realizes the beasts are smart and that he won't last much longer. Suddenly, he turns and yells for someone to stay back. It was the merchant Duncan, trying to scare off the wolves with makeshift torches. With no choice, he decides to drink the demon blood, even though it's a poison. The beasts realize what he's doing and are instantly on alert. Then our hero tips the flask and drinks the dark liquid without hesitation. Right after, he throws the empty flask on the ground with great force. A red aura envelopes him, and he prepares for the real fight. Sensing the danger, the walls begin to retreat, afraid of his power. His eyes glow an intense red, showing his total fury, and with absurd speed, he attacks the first wolf he sees. Meanwhile, Duncan is still trying to hold off the other beasts with fire, but one of the wolves ignores the flames and charges at the poor man. The merchant is completely terrified, not knowing what to do. However, our hero's sword cuts the beast down before it can reach him. Now transformed, he begins a massacre against the entire pack. He thinks that the berserker's power changes with the blood he drinks, and this time, he faces two giant beasts that appear before him. With red eyes, our hero prepares for the next attack. He realizes the demon's blood has given him an agility boost. Our guy then remembers the agile demon he faced before. Seeing his power, the remaining wolves start to flee in fear. Duncan then shouts that the beasts are running away. But our protagonist realizes it's not a retreat, but something else. Suddenly, a giant paw stomps hard on the ground, startling the duo. Our hero stands still, and the merchant hides behind him in fear. And from the shadows emerges a giant white wolf with scars on its face. Duncan warns that the beast is strange and twice the size of the others. Our guy then realizes that this is the pack leader, and to make matters worse, the effect of his power is already wearing off. He then charges at the big wolf, but the beast is incredibly strong. Our hero wonders what kind of power this is, as the beast crushes him with its weight. He tries to resist with all his strength, but the pressure is too great, and because of that, our protagonist starts coughing uncontrollably. He then stumbles backward, feeling a very sharp pain in his chest. Duncan despairs and runs to help him, asking if he's okay. The merchant yells for him to wake up, because the wolf is still in front of them. The wound from the paladin's spear reopens, and he screams in pain. The merchant Duncan holds our hero as the giant wolf prepares to attack. But Kadam ignores the beast and looks up at the sky, leaving the merchant confused. Suddenly, our protagonist seems to realize something important. With a gleam in his eyes, he says that the moment had finally arrived. The condition was a new moon night, when the sky is completely dark, so our hero slams his sword into the ground and begins to concentrate. He starts to pray to Athala, the undefeated master of all weapons, and asks that his thirst for battle be quenched with enemy blood. Our guy says that he now discards his blood-stained name upon the blade. A very strong golden light begins to emanate from the sword in the ground. The big wolf is surprised and backs away for a moment from the intense glow. Duncan is also shocked and has no idea what is going on. A golden flame then engulfs the sword, and a question hangs in the air. Our hero remembers feeling this resonance in his first life, and with a determined look, he reveals the sword's name is Mosquito. Our protagonist then grips his weapon, now filled with power. The fire on the blade grows even stronger, and a red glow appears. And with that, a mysterious symbol forms right in the middle of the sword. This is his unique characteristic called He Who Discards the Name. But a while later, the remaining monsters started attacking the village. And from within that darkness, a monster's foot stomps hard on the ground. The attacks were so violent that many villagers ended up getting hurt. So the men of the village banded together to finish off the goblins once and for all. But when they got there, they came face to face with a demon leading the horde. Powerless to fight, they had no choice but to surrender. The monster then warned that it would visit the village the following week to collect its due, and the order was for each house to offer its most useless child as a sacrifice. Duncan is furious and asks if other children had already been taken by them. The villager gets angry and says they couldn't just sacrifice their more useful children. Our hero gets tired of that excuse and clenches his fist tightly, and with one punch, he shatters the table, telling everyone to shut their mouths now. Right after, a furious goblin leaps out, weapon in hand. Our hero then asks how many horns this so-called demon had. The villager is confused and says the creature didn't have any. Our protagonist then falls silent for a brief moment, and shortly after, he grabs his sword and tells the man to show him the way. The poor guy is baffled and asks where they are going. With a serious look, our guy prepares to answer the question. He then says, very bluntly, that they're going to the demon's cave. The man is confused and says the monster didn't have any horns. Our hero figures that with no horns, the beast must be low, rank, and easy to handle. He then grabs his sword and tells the man to take him to the location. The creature is surprised. It clearly wasn't expecting company. The villager is baffled and asks where they are going. With a serious look, our guy prepares to answer the question. He then says, obviously, they're going to the fearsome demon's cave. With torches lit, they begin their trek through the dark forest. The duo and a few other villagers follow our hero through the night. The villager then says they have no way to pay for his service, but our protagonist informs him that he doesn't need payment for this. The man is relieved and thanks our hero for his great help. He then offers the man an axe as a backup weapon. Finally, they arrive at the entrance of the cave, where the demon is hiding.